Cool. All right. Hey guys, it's kind of a sneak attack live stream today. Hi Blaine, I know you're on. If anybody is here and wants to say hi, go ahead and type in the comments on the live stream chat, whatever you want to call it. I'm gonna jam just a few more minutes, see if more people show up. This is a little bit of an experiment. YouTube says I should be live streaming during the day. So I'm doing this without like actually promoting it. You just kind of see how many people show up. And I figured we do a lesson on hammer-ons and pull-offs, kind of a short, easy one. But I'll wait a few minutes. I really like these backing tracks by this. I think they're called Butternote or something like that. Let's see what this one is here. Try this guy. If you like these backing tracks, let me know. I'll put the links in the video description below. All right. Enough of that. This is what happens when you turn on the camera before you get a chance to pick the guitar up and warm up. But what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about just the mechanics of hammer-on and pull-off. I figured it'd be kind of a short subject we can get a little bit of mileage out of. So first things, let's take a look at the actual motion. You know, hammer-on and a pull-off is a legato style, which means that you're playing without picking. Right, so I'm playing these notes, but I'm not actually using the pick to make them sound, right? So a hammer-on is essentially where you take a note or a finger and you just hammer it down onto the string and cause that note to sound. You don't have to have any finger on there. You can do it to an open string. I'm having difficulties with the auto brightening here on the, right? And then the pull-off is basically where you take a finger and pull it off to the next note. But there's a little bit of difficulty in this. So if I was to, one of these guys has both. I've been doing this all day today. Here. Get rid of that and bring this guy back. Ta-da! All right. So I was just playing the note here. Oops. All right, that's my first finger. And I'm hammering on to the note on that same string on the 5th fret with my 3rd finger. All right, so there's our little hammer-on motion there. And this is the 1st finger, and this is the 3rd finger. All right, when you do this sort of thing, you know, you're trying to get as much volume as possible. You don't want it to be, you know, one of those things where we're not hearing the notes. Any legato playing should be as audible as anything that you pick, you know, using a pick or your fingers or anything. A lot of times when people start doing this in the beginning, their legato playing, the hammer and pull off stuff is lost. Right, so part of what we want to do is we're trying to get you guys to think about this in terms of a certain amount of velocity on the hammer on, and then you're actually essentially on the pull off where you're pulling away from a note, you're actually picking the string with your finger as you get off of it. You're not just taking it straight off the string. Right, now what you could do is you could make this idea something you can do for every string. So you can do hammer-ons, and right now I'm picking the first of each one of those. So I'll pick the note on the 3rd fret, and then I'll hammer on, and just get used to that sound. Oops. Get rid of Dave's comment from last night. We could do that with any combination of fingers. We could go 1 to 2. We did 1 to 3. We could also do 1 to 4. If you guys have questions, feel free to type them in the chat box. Let me know. And the best thing to do is to do this with a metronome. If you guys know me, you know everything is with the metronome. So I've got the metronome. This is set to 80 beats a minute. So I'm going, basically I'm doing one hammer on per click. So they're 8th notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and you're used to making that sound. You can do it with the 2nd finger. Same thing. Just make sure that you're getting the 2 notes as evenly loud as possible. 4th finger, 3rd finger, 2nd finger. Whatever combination of these you want to do. But essentially, we want them to sound good. We also want them to be in time, specifically in time. All right, if I wanted to do triplets, 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, or 16th notes, 1 E and a 2 E and a, whoops, maybe be sure I'm in time first. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and, right, you can work on that stuff all that way. And that's just doing the hammer on without the pull off. We can take these ideas and reverse them. All right, so you can go 3 and then pull off to 1. Now the trick here, and you can see this, I'll shut the metronome off for a second. I can pull down And if I pull straight up off the string, it may sound a little bit, but it doesn't have the same amount of volume as when I'm kind of lightly pulling down. So hammer on is straight onto the string, pull off is a little bit down, and that kind of plucks the string. If I go, right, and I'm just playing straight off the string, you don't get the same amount of volume. Right, if I was to do like, Van Halen, right, what you see here is I'm pulling up on that one and down there. And that makes it really loud. If I was just to go and go straight off without the sideways motion, you're not going to hear the pull off. And that's kind of the key to this. All right. So you can practice the hammer-ons, eighth notes, or you can practice pull-offs with all of those combinations of fingers. All right. That's one way to get started. Hammer straight onto the string, pull down slightly. Don't pull so that you're bending the string though. And sometimes it gets harder as you're doing this on the thinner strings. All right, but you want to just make sure that it stays in tune. If you pull it down, it's going to go sharp. It'll be out of tune. All right. Now, these are not the only combinations of fingers you can do this on. If I wanted to, I could go two, three, and then two, and then four. So there's two. I'll do it on these strings. Put the pen down. I can do this easier. And then 2 and 4. Right. As you get that part of the hand, it gets a little harder to be accurate with it. The pinky doesn't have a whole lot of control. Your motor skills in your hands essentially are really well developed in the first two fingers because we point, we grab things, we do a lot of stuff that way. But when you get to this part of the hand, not so much. All right. So that takes a lot of the work when we're practicing this stuff. So we do things like this where we've got, there's 2 and 3, right, or pull-offs, 2, 4. All right, and then the last one we could do is 3 and 4. Oops. Oops. All right, so then we have, let me grab my pick. Or, now this may be malarkey, we'll call it. I had a student who was a doctor explain to me once that like each of your fingers essentially has a major and a minor tendon that controls it. But these two fingers, the two of your fingers basically share one major tendon, I guess, right? So, getting, each of your fingers, that guy is really well controlled. This guy has more control. Ring finger is kind of hard to move by itself. Pinky has a little, right? So what happens is when you have to make movements between the third and fourth fingers, it takes a little bit more work, right? And you can get there. I mean, I can play, it's not that hard to do, but you have to be specific about it. A lot of us, when we start playing, we get into this headspace where it's hard right off the bat to make your pinky work, and we just never train it up. And it really doesn't take much more time than it does to train everything else up. You just have to be specific about working on it, including it in the stuff that you work on. All right. Parts of this also, if you notice, when I'm doing this stuff that includes the third and fourth fingers, my hand is not like this. A lot of people will play with their thumb over the top, which is fine, and their first finger here pointing kind of back at their head, and then this finger's all the way out here, right, and doesn't really go anywhere. If you have the hand situated where the fingers are kind of in line with the string more, then you give the pinky a little bit more of a fighting chance to do stuff, because it's actually where it's got some power. If it's far enough away, it's hard to reach. It doesn't have a lot of strength. It's at the end of the power curve for it. So that's the other thing to keep in mind, is as you do these things, you know, try and make sure that your hand is actually in line with the string. All right. So if we were to take 3 notes, let's do something where we're doing something that might be considered part of a scale. We're going to take this finger combination, all right, which is going to be 1, 3, and 4. Notice that we're not talking about notes or scales or anything specific. All we're doing is we're talking about the mechanics of this stuff here. Okay, so the first 3 notes, wait for the camera to adjust. 1, 3, 4. Get used to making those notes happen. All right, and we put the metronome on. We can do it as eighth notes, which is 2 notes per click, or triplets, which is kind of the normal inclination when you're first starting. And then we can move that thing down 1 string, same pattern. Right? And that gives us the first 6 notes of a natural minor scale. And all I'm doing with the picking hand I'm just picking once at the beginning of each string, right? Once you get comfortable with that in time, and get used to the idea that you can either do it as triplets, which means 1 pick stroke and 3 notes per click, or eighth notes, where it's 2 notes per beat, which actually moves 1 and 2 and 3, and the pick stroke happens on the downbeat or on the and, either on every click or like that. Always in time, always about in time. It's really important. If you guys have questions, please let me know. Put it in the chat box. Blaine, if you're on still, Blaine is one of my private students. You can text me your questions. But that's the first thing, is just getting used to going up that pattern. And then you can start at the top note. Get used to making those pull-offs nice and loud, and then do it. All right, and I'm just picking same thing, once at the top of each string. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and, or once per beat. Now you can take that pattern, you can also do it instead of going 1, 3, 4. I won't bother writing this out, but you can go 1, 2, 4. Same thing. Or we can do it in reverse too. Or right, and this is the thing, you can make an exercise out of any of these things, whatever permutations you want. You can go, right? So what I do is I pick the first string, second string, and then I pull off, and I don't pick until I get to the first string again right there. So let's, this way you can see both my hands on this. So I'll pick the very first note of each string and and hammer and pull the rest, and just try and get it as loud as possible. I can also, once I get started, try and do it without any picking. That's a little bit harder. It'll wear your hands out. You know, you don't want to do this so much that your hands get kind of blown up from doing it, but it does help. To try and get it so that you can actually hear everything like that. Let me pause for a second if you guys have questions. If you're watching this on the replay, I've noticed that I'll have a handful of people on during the live stream, and then I'll have about 15 times as many people watching it in the replay. Always leave your questions in the chat box or underneath the video. Then I can always answer them either in the next live stream, or I can write something and answer your question or comment. All right, so that's kind of the first thing is hammer and pull offs on a single string. Yeah, you want to try and get it so that you can play the stuff where we hear it loud, with not a whole lot of difference between the hammer and pulled notes versus what you pick. Always be a little bit, I think, but you want to try and get that even. You also, I'll talk about scale patterns here in a second. But you also want to make sure that they're always in time. Whenever you practice stuff, it needs to be in time. It's so easy for people to, how fast can I hammer and pull stuff? And then it's kind of gibberish. It's not in time. I'll be honest. There's times like on a rock gig where you're playing something and you've reached like the maximum intensity of a solo, and then it is kind of cool to play something that's fast enough that you can't hear that it's not a subdivision, but you can't tell like how it's out of time, like that sort of thing. Like that's an effect, right? But ultimately this stuff should be controlled where you can play it in time like that. So let's give you guys the 3-note per string scale pattern. Whoops. That was last night's live stream. So this is going to be just a major scale. I'm going to do this just like we do the cage system stuff, but it's 3 notes per string, which will make this a little bit easier. The roots of the open circles. Even if you don't know this stuff, where each number is where you're going to put a finger. Oops, I'm writing this down. I didn't actually make it. Let me rotate this and see if this frames it. There we go. 6, 7, root, 2, 3, and then 4. All right. So what we have here is a major scale. I'm starting in G. That's the 3rd fret. And we can pick it just to get the fingering down. Root, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, root, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, root, 2, 3, 4. Let me tune, because I'm obviously not in tune anymore. Now, you'll notice I'm not using any distortion. Actually, I got a little bit of light overdrive on here. Now I'm not using any distortion. There's not really much in the way of effects going on. We want all of the sound to come from your hands. All right. If I put the metronome back on and I play this G major scale, I'll pick at the beginning of every string. 1 and 2 and 3. Whoops, I missed the string. All right, just getting it so it's in time with all the pull-offs that you can possibly do and all the hammer-ons that you can do. Those are 8th notes. We can do as triplets. Right. If you notice when I was going up, it was 3 notes per string. So every string started on a click. but the math didn't line up here. 1 triplet, 2 triplet, right? So then that was the triplet. Right. You could also start at the top and just do, 1 triplet per string if you're just getting used to this. All right. Then we do them as 16th notes. 1. Oops, hang on a second. All right. The idea being that you should have control over all these things. I'm like hunched over, so I apologize for making mistakes every once in a while. My camera situation is not being my friend today. If you got questions, please hit me up. All right, but you can take any scale, and do that with it. The 3-note per string makes it easy to do that. I don't play this way all the time. I don't teach it this way all the time. You also, I'll leave the minor version. So we got this scale here. And if I was to start, I'll do this one in green so you can see the difference. Oops. Yeah, there's a couple ways of doing this, but this will make the most sense, I think. If you guys aren't familiar with my other lessons on scales, the numbers are the scale degrees. This one's written in C sharp here on the fretboard. I'll go through this for you a little bit here. Root 2, minor 3, 4, 5, minor 6, minor 7, root 2, minor 3, 4, 5, minor 6, minor 7, root 2, 3, 4. All right. It's just basically the pattern for a minor scale. For some reason, it's doing this weird centering thing here. So you can do the same thing. So you're either playing the major pattern, or you do it all right. And it also shows you the difference between major and minor scales. You have to look at the bottom one here. Is that the 2, 6, and 7. I'm sorry, the 3, 6, and 7 have been lowered a half step. So, G major is there, and if I lower the 3rd, 6, and 7, then I get the minor version of that scale. All right. But when we're doing this in terms of just working on it with hammer and pull stuff, it's cool because then you start recognizing where these physical patterns are. Right, I'm going, and when I've got the 2 whole steps in a row here, this is 1, 2, and then 3 from the major scale. I notice that my stretch is happening to the 1st and 2nd fingers. All right, if I'm doing it 1, 3, 4 like this, notice that I'm making this reach here between these 2 fingers. All right, it's hard to get the pinky out here to go 1, 3, and 4. All right, even for me, and I've got really large hands. So going 1, 2, 4 for that stretch makes a big difference. And as we're playing the scale, it keeps the fingering a little bit more consistent until we get up here. All right. Okay, any questions, guys? Yes, no? Okay. What I can do is I'll probably just make this one a half hour. I've got one more. Actually, I have a private student. I'm taking a little bit of his time today to do this. This was a little bit of an experiment of a lesson. If you guys like this, please hit the thumbs up. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell, all the stuff YouTubers tell you to do. It helps other people see this stuff on YouTube. Helps my channel out. I appreciate it. If you guys like the idea of morning lessons, I'll probably do them a little bit earlier, like 8:30 or 9 o'clock. I can do this either in addition to or in place of the ones that I do later in the evening. I'll even plan them. But the idea here is that this is kind of an introduction to hammer-on and pull-off material. I've got some other stuff that we're going to do later on. There'll be a little bit more of an advanced version of this. We don't have a PDF or a printout for you, so you can always go back through this video, and just rewind and kind of see where I've written it on the whiteboard. But that's pretty much it. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have any questions or issues with it. I can address in a future lesson, and I will see you guys soon. Next one of these planned is a Saturday morning at 8:30 a.m. So, and that one's actually on alternate picking. Thanks, guys.